remember when the protests in Iran were happening, and I don't know if they're still happening or not. I'm not caught up on the situation there, but many Western feminists spoke out and even protests went on the street and saying that they support the women of Iran to basically choose to wear the hijab or not. But in this context, though, the women in Iran who are protesting to take it off, right? And the Western feminists very much were vocal about it. In the thousands are on the streets protesting all over the place. And they're very much in support. And there's even here in Toronto, there's signs we're going to support the women of Iran, signs in Toronto, okay? But when it comes to Muslim women who want to wear the hijab, right, like in France, for example, because you brought that up as an example, the feminists are nowhere to be seen. There's no mass protest. There's no call. There's no talk about it in the governments. There's no signs like, oh, let's support Muslim women wearing the hijab in France. There's nothing. So to be honest with you, I know that there are differences of opinion and not all feminists agree on the same thing. I agree with you on that. And I wasn't trying to say that all feminists are the same, but there is a trend here, right? There is a bias. There's a leaning towards being anti-hijab, right? That, oh, if Muslim women want to take it off, well, we have to defend their right to take it off. But when it comes to Muslim women wanting to wear it, it's just like a ghost town. Nobody says anything. And so, and this is, by the way, in the thousands of people are on the streets. Like, this is craziness, you know? So they do see our issues. They hear about them. SubhanAllah, they just don't care. So there is a trend in the Western world to be anti-hijab because of their, to be honest, because of their history of Islamophobia, right? They have a history of this, right? So, Wa, do you want to maybe add anything to this point before she comes back, inshallah?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I think it's important to understand that, and I think we also shed a little bit of light on this the last time. I'm so sorry for all of the background noise. We're having some work done, so there's a lot of noise. But I think the most important thing to understand here is that feminists as a whole, we have to understand, number one, feminism originated in the West. And so as a whole, feminism is going to cater towards the desires of the West. And that's why even when they look at problems in the Muslim world, they will only ever shed light on something that is liberal, something that they agree with, essentially. And seeing the trends of Islamophobia, we know very well, and we can assume very quickly that they will never shed light on anything that is pro-Islamic. And that's why taking the hijab off, yes, we're going to go and we're going to protest and we're going to shed light on it. I mean, it was trending on the news. You had all these big celebrities and big people speaking about it. But how many times in the Western world itself did we hear about Muslim women who couldn't wear the hijab? I mean, just a few days ago, there was a video that was circulating where a sister was told to take off her khimar and her hijab before entering a school, you know? But where are the feminists? They're nowhere to be seen. And this shows us that essentially, even if we were to join forces with feminism in order to get our own rights, they will not support us unless it is something that essentially benefits Western civilization. And Islam is not a part of that. And we have to, I think, a very important thing we have to understand is all isms in the West, all these man-made ideologies are interconnected. So we cannot, even when we come to critiquing feminism, we cannot critique it all alone. I mean, there's a lot to say about it, but I don't think people will understand the detrimental effects of it unless they look at it from a overall perspective. When you look at how capitalism is tied to it, individualism is tied to it, all the different aspects of society, when you see how whatever makes Western civilization is all interconnected and each part benefits each other, right? So, I mean, when I first came to study feminism and all of that, I actually studied it from an economic perspective. And so when you understand how feminism, it's not just a movement for the rights of women. if you're looking at feminism just as a movement for the rights of women and you don't realize how it is interconnected to all other parts of society, that's when you don't see the actual detrimental effects of feminism in society.
I do believe that it can be used in a good context that allows Islam to flourish rather than within a Western country, let me clarify. So when it comes to, feminists, I just don't believe that it gives any disadvantages in the country itself.
Okay, so you said that it could be used to allow Islam to flourish. That part I want to dissect with you. This is very wrong. I'll tell you why. If we were to present to feminists that, for example, hijab is fard, they will never accept it. Why? Because even the conservative feminists that you're speaking about, that were speaking in support of the whole issue in Iran, saying that women should have the choice to cover or not to cover, the key word here is that they should have the choice. That's what they preach. Because that is a feminist rhetoric, that women should have the choice to do whatever they want. But in Islam, we know hijab is fard. And so even what they were preaching, we can see it as something, oh, look, they're supporting Muslim women wanting to wear the hijab. They're not supporting Muslim women wearing the hijab. They're supporting the choice for Muslim women to choose whether or not they want to wear the hijab. That's what they are preaching. That's why when women in France wanted to wear the hijab, the uproar was not the same as when women wanted to not wear the hijab. Because you have to understand, this is also a psychological thing. When man is given the choice, right? I mean, we all have temptations, okay? As much as people come out to make the hijab something so great, it is great in value, but we have to understand that every woman, to some extent, wants to be seen. That's why it's a test. That's why we get rewarded for it, for covering ourselves, right? And so when given the choice, the shiny apple that's standing there, right? Most human beings will want to go after that. And so when Muslim women are told, no, it's just a choice. Just, you can choose. That is against Islam, because that is saying that that a hijab is a choice in Islam. Now, when we can get into the whole discussion of what should happen to the women that don't wear the hijab and all of that. We know that if you don't wear it, it's the same as if you drink alcohol. It's haram, and there's no way around it. But there's still going to be people who do it, and their punishment, they're going to be disobeyed. I mean, they're disobedient to Allah, they're going to be punished by Allah. That's the fact of it. But the West and the narrative that the West is pushing and the narrative that the feminists are pushing is that you have the choice. And this is where I'm going back to tell you, feminism from its very core, and the feminists who subscribe to it, will only push a narrative of Islam that is liberal and that aligns with feminism.